Good morning.
Everything is super weird today. All the layout, nothing is working. I can't fix anything because I signed in with the wrong account and this is not the paid version and I can't maneuver things. So we'll just go with the flow.
It's all good. It's a Tuesday morning, 2 weeks before Christmas. So
I know.
we'll go with the mood for today.
Exactly. Yeah. And such a fun topic that I think we could talk
Mhm.
about these things over and over and over and bring all kinds of examples. I even looked at
Yes.
some examples to talk about modern brands and some older brands and even our brand that we could talk about. And it's just the
hmm
possibilities are endless. So I think at this point we'll just go with whatever comes to our mind since technology isn't allowing me to be fancy today like we always are. Um, so yeah, so branding. I think
Yep.
what being to me, branding starts with personal branding first,
Yep.
right? Before we go into this company branding, before we start representing our company. I think the great example is your award this weekend, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What an award.
Yeah, I think that personal branding is so important. I think we both are very focused in on that. But yeah, thank you. I was awarded Member of the Year for my Vistage group this week, and to me that is one of those flags that other people recognize that subject matter expertness that I've created or crafted as part of my brand of what my company and what our company now does and what we do. So it's sort of that cherry on top of the branding story and how you put together things.
Yeah,
I obviously need more caffeine this morning to talk a little bit more about it, but I think when you think about personal branding, it starts from day one. It starts when you're in college. It starts when you are focusing and finding out around what you want to do with the rest of your life and how you want the business community to picture you, but also others. Like I joke a lot that I think that from a branding perspective, people talk a lot about that you have like your work personality and then your friend personality and your family personality, but I kind of think of those as just sort of parts and parcels of your brand out
right.
there and what you put out into the world and the universe, because um, people only know you and what your brand is by the communication, whether that's physical or verbal communication that you have with others. And so branding is critical to that future success. And I think it's so important right now too for the youth of today. I feel horrible saying that, but makes me feel like I'm ancient. But there's so much in social nowadays, and I'm not going to get on a soapbox about social media and things like that. But there's so much in social today that is a part of that personal branding, and it's skewing younger and younger. And is that your branding that you want now, and is that the branding of you that you want in the future as you mature and things like that? I think that for those of us that grew up without the cloud of social media around us constantly and consistently growing up, we lucked out because we got to sort of beta test our brand
Exactly, right? Yeah, we did
without
it
it.
raw.
Yeah, without it living forever somewhere. And then, when we hit sort of that age of majority or that maturity level where this was what we wanted to be known for, this is what we want to talk about for our branding, that we had that ability. Because once you sacrifice your brand or once you tarnish your brand, it is incredibly hard to get that back in
Hmm.
perception and in people's eyes. It's the same thing personally and professionally, for company brands. And I talk
Yeah.
about that a lot with clients. Yeah. So sorry, I
Yeah.
just got very soapboxy this morning.
No, I think you're right. And I think great example right now is Harvard University, right? Dr. Gay is
hmm
in hot seat right now over everything that's happening. So I think her personal brand is tarnishing Harvard's brand. And
Yeah.
reputation. So I think there's a lot going on. There's a lot of key takeaways that we can take from everything that goes on in the world, right? Every time a CEO and executive stepping down and because something happened, because they don't want to drag the entire company with them because of it. So yeah, I think there's lots of great examples, and part of our company, we offer brand management. And I think what people confuse brand management with is branding on its own, as
Yeah.
if logos, typography, fonts, colors, and it's all great and all, but we more
Mhm.
concentrate on a value, on a message. How do you show up? What does your online presence, offline presence look like? And what can you do to increase that NPS score for your potential talent? How do you show up for others? How do they see you externally? And what do they perceive before they actually engage with you? So I think there's a lot that could be taken away, and people need to differentiate themselves, and basically just take that part away where you think it's all about, again, right, the colors and typography, which in some sense it is. It's great. It's a great memory mimic, but it's not all about it.
Absolutely. And I think that to your point, going back to the Harvard and that situation, right, where you've got a leader in an organization that is, potentially tarnishing an overall brand, that can work not only externally for an audience, but that can work internally too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're seeing that not only for the general population looking at Harvard and maybe looking at it through a different lens with what's going on, but internally, now you've got the professors and you've got the students
Mm-hmm.
at the school that are now looking at the university. So it works the same way in business, right? So if you are
Mm-hmm.
in a situation where you are leading an organization, you owner, CEO, whatever, like you're leading an organization, your personal brand is a direct reflection in the eyes externally and internally of what's going on within that company and organization and that company's brand. So I think when we talk a lot about culture alignment within team members, that is 100% true when it comes to, is your company brand aligned with your personal brand and cultures and values? Because if
Mm-hmm.
they're not, you're going
Mm-hmm.
to have huge challenges with
Mm-hmm.
building a strong brand reputation out
Yeah.
there, because things are just, you're going to constantly butt up against each other in those types of situations. So absolutely. But I do have a great, when we go to coloring and things like that, I have a great story.
Yeah, no,
And
so I think just a couple of like quick examples just to kind of bring back to reality, right? We just talked about the Harvard, like thinking about a Glossier, right? The
mhm,
fancy makeup cosmetics, right? The beauty brand that they started as a blog. And then they build a strong brand
mhm,
image with this direct to consumer model, and basically emphasizing natural beauty and community driven product development. And that's what brought back Dove to its consumers, right? Like a
yep,
similar structure. And then we think about Warby Parker's. Like Warby Parker is my biggest case study that I always use in a lot of work that I do. And so by remembering that they started as online only eyewear retailer, and then stood out for its customer centric approach. They have a great social listening tools. Um, but yet they stylish, affordable products, socially
mhm,
conscious business model. That's the biggest thing. One for one glasses donation program. So I think this was a great image that they've created for themselves. And um, even thinking about vision work, I remember when I had an interview with Vision Work, an employee that I was interviewing with, who was an immediate supervisor, this was maybe 8 years ago, was telling them all about company culture and the core values. And the only way they would be able to hire someone is who will fit in with that culture. So this is your brand image. And if an employee spoke highly about it, and this is the type of
yeah,
employees they're looking for, I think that was amazing to me. And Vision Works is the stapler here in San Antonio. And then we
yeah,
have Casper, right? Casper in a very crowded mattress market. I mean, when I go to shop for a mattress, to me, I want two things. I want no springs, I want affordability, and I want something that will last for 8 years to 10, right? Because the recommendation is to change mattress 10 years. And
yeah,
so Casper has differentiated itself with a strong online presence. clever marketing, innovative product design, revolutionizing the new mattresses that was sold and delivered to their consumers. And to this day, they have 4.8 star rating. So I think they've been doing pretty good. So these are just a couple of examples, random different industries that are companies doing great job. And even thinking about the old brands like Cartier, right? Tiffany, although Tiffany
Yep.
was in hot water not too long ago, and they decided to do a slight different campaigns. But it's such a staple in our generation, right? Millennials, Gen X, millennials,
Yep.
baby boomers. They will always remember those brands because of what they offer, because of what they have, and how it makes them feel.
Yeah, and I mean, perfectly aligned with that. One of the best stories I can tell, and it's a little bit of bragging on, previous companies, but if you look at what Hilton right now and the campaign that they have going for the longest time, like when I worked within Hilton, we used to get calls all the time with, could we get Paris Hilton's email address? And at that time, that was, simple, like that was her sort of, as she was crafting her brand and what she looked like, it didn't quite align with what Hilton Hotels was looking to do for theirs.
Mm-hmm.
But we look at what's happened and what's come full circle, and now where she's sort of done some brand rehab on her personal brand, and what that, as she's grown up and aged and become a little bit more of an adult, and how that is now aligning with what Hilton Hotels and Resorts has been trying to do and set themselves apart, to your point, in a very crowded market for a company that's over 100 years old. And so now you're starting to see, how do these mesh and intertwine together. It's sort of that. And then, like, I saw one of the commercials the other day, and I was like, it's almost like Barbie core has like interwoven into it, because Paris was known for pink and now it's all very pink. Anyway, but yeah, so it's, you see this a lot out there, and I think that that is important. The look, feel, touch of a brand is
Yeah.
incredibly important too.
Yep.
The ability, when I look at it from a sales perspective, some of the organizations, whether you are a fan or not, when you look at LVMH, which is the parent company for like
Mm-hmm.
Louis Vuitton and some of those, Louis Vuitton is a product that everybody's very familiar with, has a very strong brand. They do not put themselves on sale. They don't have outlet
Mm-hmm.
stores. They don't put themselves on sale. And that is intentional. If something doesn't sell, good, bad, or ugly, they get rid of it. They shred it. They get rid of it, because that is a part of their brand. So they have, from a sales perspective, had taken a brand integrity state where they're like, this is a hill we will die on, basically.
Mm-hmm.
We will not put
Yep.
ourselves on sale. And what it has allowed them to do is has allowed them to maintain that luxury or entry level
Exclusivity.
luxury
Mm-hmm.
space. Right. When you see brands like, for example, Coach, where that for the longest time was considered a higher end luxury brand, and then it went the way of having outlets, having sales,
Mm-hmm.
things like that, and it's not considered as high as it once was. If you get an older vintage one, they are. But anyway, I could go down the purse story all the
No,
time.
yeah, I think that's perfect. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, it is. And I think that we also have to remember that your brand, the way your brand looks, does have to align. So, a great example for me is when within Hilton, when we were building out collection brand hotels. That is an incredibly hard thing to do, because you're not having something that is the same that in every single market, right? It's not, you can't look at something and go, oh, I know exactly what that is. So you're having to
Mm-hmm.
tell a story around what is the collection, what is that? And when it came down to the Tapestry collection brand, right? So you've got Tapestry, it was, how do we build slogans around that, like weaving your own story, right? So that's about
Right.
this uniqueness, this space, the imagery, then the background of the imagery and the way that the logo was written at the time was a woven pattern, like, so it was this holistic telling of things. And so I think that's really
Yeah.
important as well.
Yeah, I think like another thing that people forget is storytelling. Storytelling, your
Mm,
brand story is very important. So you have to learn how to articulate that narrative that emotionally connects with your audience. You have to tell them your why, why did you start? When did you start? What
yep.
was the idea behind it? What were you trying to accomplish, right? Were you trying to build a legacy? Was the idea to, uh, you know, I always give an example of why do we have a lot of small businesses that fail is because a small business owner starts a business because they have a passion or a skill, right? So they don't have those business fundamentals. They know how to do this one thing perfect and they can offer it to the world. They just don't know how to structure the entire thing. So I think
Yeah.
this is why it's important to go back to that story, right? To understand your why. Begin with understanding
Mhm.
with why your brand exists at this point. Why do you exist? How do you connect yourself to this brand, right? Beyond just selling products or services. What is your mission? What is your vision? What are those values, right? Those core values that we were
Yeah.
just talking about. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish within your arena of space, right? What are those elements for great brand story?
Yeah.
The customer approach, the problems they face, the solution you offer, um, uh, what type of transformation or success or outcome you can offer to them. And then this emotional connection, right? Utilizing storytelling techniques to evoke emotion.
Yeah.
It could be like the sense of belonging. And we just had a conversation of last Friday about sense of belonging, right? Inspiration, relief, happiness, whatever that emotion is.
Yeah.
Sharing real stories about the real customers, the journey of the founders. I think this is really, really important. So right now we're working on our brand new website, and I think the biggest thing that I'm trying to do is connect who we are, who you are, who I am, and how do we connect this into this whole story, and so that it connects us to our
Hmm.
company. And then
Yeah.
consistency across channels, I think, is the most important thing, right? And then now we're going back to colors and fonts and typography, where you have to be very consistent. If you're yellow here, you should remain yellow here. If you're purple there, then you should remain purple there, and just stay within the scheme of things you've created. And then between the websites, the social media, the communication with your customers,
Yeah.
and then it'll lead you to like this master brand positioning.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I always talk to clients about at the very beginning is there's no uniqueness anymore
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to business venture launching, right?
Mm-hmm.
I joke all the time with AI because, AI was already out there to a certain extent. ChatGPT felt like it was unique, but it really wasn't. There wasn't something new. But what you can do is you can talk about, and this can be a part of that branding,
Mm-hmm.
is you started your business because you felt like you could do something better than anyone else in your space, whether you're a CPA or
Mm-hmm.
bookkeeper,
Yep.
you're a professional services, you're a consultant, whatever it is, you created either a product or service that you felt like you could do better than anybody else out there. That's your uniqueness. And that's where you start to tell your story. And that becomes part of the branding. And then when you look at it, and you talked about this very much about being consistency, across all the different channels, that's where alignment between marketing and sales and
Mm-hmm.
operations and ownership across the board needs to, because you need to be talking and telling the same story in all of those channels. So when sales is talking about your product or service, they need to be talking that same story, just like the owner would, or just like marketing has put out into the communication when they're sending proposals or they're sending content. It needs to be in that look, feel, touch of, so because that's where you build familiarity in your product or service. It's where you
Mm-hmm.
build that connection with others,
Mm-hmm.
and it's being authentic. I mean,
Exactly.
branding is not about telling a story just to tell a story. It's creating authenticity out there too. I joke a lot that the reason that I'm doing what I'm doing now is I spent 6 years basically flying 170,000 miles a year, every year for 6 years practically. And it was exhilarating and fun and unique. But 6 years in, you get a little burnt out, and
Mm-hmm.
you kind of want to say, how do I pull time back to myself? How can I give to others knowledge and resources that I have built up over the 20 years that I've been doing what I do? And so that becomes a part of not only my story, but that became a part of my company story. And now with our venture, that becomes also a partnership between, like, here's what we can bring,
Mm-hmm.
a very universal, very, international look, feel, touch to what we're doing when we need
Mm-hmm.
to. And that has benefited. We've had clients from, based that have been based in other countries. And so
Right.
that's really important. where we can tell that story as well. So
Yeah, and I think so. A couple of things to remember, right? When you're building your brand, it's kind of like giving you a template. You have to identify your unique selling proposition. Without that USP, it's going to be really difficult for you to compete over the
yeah.
space to gain that market share, right? So,
Hmm.
what does make you unique out of all of your competitors, right? And then
Yeah.
the next thing is understanding your audience. Who are you serving? What is their pain point? And how best can you provide that solution to them, right? How can you tailor the message that speaks directly to them, to these pain points? Next thing is leveraging competitors analysis. This is my biggest thing, where I don't mean you have to know who are your direct competitors.
Hmm.
There's direct competitors and indirect competitors, and you have to be two steps ahead of them. You have to know what they are doing. The best way to do this is to see what they post, right? The blogs they write, the social media, the emails they send out, just so you can kind of get the feeling of what their audience. But there's a kicker to this: is do not dwell too much on it, because without competition, you do not exist. So competition
Yeah.
is really good. It's good for you and for your business. So just analyze what your competitors are doing and position your brand as the better choice for your audience.
Yeah.
And
And
then
I want to, sorry, I want to jump in here too. And
yeah,
I want to make this very apparent and important to the people. When you know your competition and you're positioning against them, that's great. But when you are out there competitively bidding against somebody, or you are talking to a potential client, never, ever, ever trash your competition,
mhm.
because that's a direct reflection and can have brand reputation consequences on you. So just, I wanted to throw that in there real quick.
No, absolutely, yeah. Because the moment you start talking something about them, that puts a bad reputation on you, not on them. Because you don't even
Yeah.
know if you were the second choice at that point. So I think it's
Yeah.
that's why I'm saying that don't dwell too much on your competition. Just know what they do and try to be better. That's just by
Yeah.
highlighting, those differentiations. And then the next thing is like the thought leadership, right? We are all professionals, and I think it all makes it better if you are a great leader within your community, within your company. So
Hmm.
establishing your brand as a thought leader among your competitors and your audience in your industry is by sharing insightful content, participating in the industry discussions, offering unique perspective, anything you could do to be out there, to have your voice heard. I think it's great, for as long as you know what you're talking about. So thought leadership helps you build credibility and authority. So, and it comes in many different ways, right? It's not all PR. It's not just getting on that magazine and talking about it. It's anything. And now we live in digital
Yeah.
world. Podcast is a simple thing to do. I think
Yeah.
those are my
I think,
favorite things.
yeah, this is a great example of being able to kind of get out and give that thought leadership. We talk a lot about the fact that in our space, people need to see us in action to a certain extent to understand the capabilities and what we bring to an organization.
Hmm.
But even, even it's holiday party season, right? This is when all kinds of organizations are having their holiday parties. So being able to connect with others and that thought leadership at a table or in conversation during networking or things like that,
Hmm.
that is absolutely a space that that can be,
Hmm.
that can bring that subject matter expert out in not only you but in others' eyes. I mean, again, the night that my Vistage event, I was, after good, bad, or ugly, after winning the award, I sat down at a table that I was talking to a gentleman at, and he was like, "Okay, now tell me what you do again, and tell me more." And so it was an
Yeah.
implied professionalism. Yes, I won an award, but it was okay. I need to understand what you do better.
Hmm.
Let's connect more. Let's have those conversations. And it may not be that he needs my services,
Hmm.
but it could be that now that I have that, it could be that down the road, okay, I know someone, or you know what, you would be a great speaker at, and those always
Hmm.
build credibility for
Hmm.
you out there in the marketplace, and they do build clientele at the end of the day.
Yeah, and another thing to remember is people don't remember names right away, and not
Yeah.
everyone has a photogenic memory, so they can remember faces. What they remember is a conversation they have. I have
Yeah.
a photogenic memory, so I remember faces really, really well, just as any other things. Um, but I'm having a hard time to connect with people if they're just going to throw a name and walk away. But if you're going to have a conversation with me, I'll remember exactly what we spoke about, so I can reach out to you and we can continue this conversation. So I think that's another great thing to remember, is just because you go to networking and throw your business card doesn't mean somebody's going to reach out to you. So having a topic to talk about is what's important, what's going to stick in somebody else's head, and then making that conversation engaging. I think, a two-way conversation is even better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm thankful that you have the photogenic, because I do not. And someone who spent so many years in sales, name and faces connection. Sometimes I'm like, I know the face, it's the name that's going to get me. So that ability to tie somebody back to a story where I remember what we talked about or what story we talked about, that type of thing, is something that is much more engaging. I'm going to remember them much better the next time that I see them, the next time that I spend time with them. And I think we've talked before that oftentimes it can take up to 10 times before somebody actually remembers you. And when we talk business, that's a difficult situation to think, 10 different, that could be a full year worth of engagement before somebody even remembers you. And especially if you're pursuing them from a sales perspective and you're wanting to work with them and have them as a client, that could be really difficult. So that ability to connect faster by the storytelling and using that as part of your branding is important.
Yeah, it's all about those emotions that we evoke in other people. I think that's what's more memorable than anything else, because at the end of the day, we come in, we have all these business cards that I throw at my table, and then I'm hoping that I'm going to put them in my CRM. And then what happens with CRM is it's sitting. I mean, if it was an interesting conversation, I'm 100% going to reach out. I'm going to have another one-on-one. But if it was just like bland, where a very transactional conversation, then that's where it's going to stay. It's just going to be transactional, and we're not going to continue. So yeah, these are the type of things are important. So again, right, it's not as your colors and your branding and business cards you throw, right? I have a fancy business card, and that's what people are like, oh, does that actually equals to anything? Not really, because again, if we're not having that intelligent conversation, is just not getting us anywhere. So there's a couple of things to do before you actually establish your brand, but you just have to have this differentiation between your personal brand and your company brand, so that you know how to kind of align yourself with what it is in your mission and your vision, where you're going.
Yeah. And then you have to share that. Like, I talked with someone not too long ago, and part of that brand and had created mission and vision and all these kinds of stuff. And we were working on sort of shortening the vision, where it wasn't, a huge story. It was much more of a vision statement. And they had been told that, well, I should just keep that internal, right? I'm like, no, share your vision. That needs to be public, because that's another space that clients or business can connect with you. That's another part of your story. So all of mission, vision, values, all of that should be something that you are willing to share with others, because that is where they can make that emotional connection. People, 100% from the sales side of things, people don't do business with your business. They do it with you and the people that work for you.
Exactly.
And so anytime that you can make that emotional connection, is you will build a client base that is loyal and that become passionate. They will be the ones that will talk and tell. I mean, I just signed on a new client, and specifically they decided to sign with me because they had seen me present, because somebody had asked me to. And when those clients went to that person afterwards and said, listen, we're thinking about working with Shelly, what do you think? And she knew me and knew, she was able to basically say, you don't have this skill, and she does. And I do recommend that you make that connection and that you do work with her. So people will become advocates for you out there. So
yeah. And another thing with the mission and vision, it's not just to put out there for a business plan, right? You have to lead your company and your team with that vision that you've set out. Otherwise, it's just useless and it just serves no purpose. So when you do take that time and you create that mission, the vision, the best thing to do is share, and then not just share in a sense where here it is, but lead with that vision,
Yes.
right? Lead to that vision, right? Lead with the mission, so that the entire company aligns with the values and vision, and you create this company culture. You're growing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If you can't walk the walk on what you've put together for your company or organization, nobody else in your company will. And
Hmm.
then you really haven't built a brand. You haven't built that value that you need to in the
Yeah,
company or organization. So,
exactly.
yeah. So, do
All
we have any
right.
questions this morning, or can we see them? I know that we're.
I don't know. I don't know if I don't see anything here, and obviously they delayed, but being that I'm in the wrong account, I don't think we are able, it's probably like delayed. So I
Okay.
did just check there's something going on LinkedIn. And then of course, as soon as I clicked it, it went, send me to our live. And I'm like, okay, we can have that.
We don't
um,
want to have it duplicating in the background.
exactly. So yeah, I'm going to go and check it out. But
Okay.
let's see what we have going on next week. Next week is going to be the last
Yes.
one before the January.
Yeah, before we take a couple of weeks off for the holidays, because
Hmm.
nobody wants to listen in on, the week of Christmas or the week of New Year's. We kind of want to spend time with friends and
Exactly.
family.
Absolutely. Okay. So, oh my God, I'm in week 7, 8, 9, 10. That's how far I've planned things. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yes. The next week we're going to innovate or stagnate, right? A real scenario, discuss
Nice.
how Netflix adaptation of streamlined technology outspaced Blockbuster. And then innovation audit checklist that you can use to evaluate your readiness for adoption of a new technology.
Nice. Innovation versus stagnation. I love it. That's one of my other favorites. I know we could talk about branding topics forever.
Hmm.
We could also talk about innovation,
Yeah.
for a long
Yeah.
time as well. So,
Yeah. One of our 3 things in our website that we actually, our core philosophy, right? Like our core values, and the 3 that we have in our logo, it stands for innovation, strategy, and collaboration. So I think those are
yeah.
big things for us to talk about. So all right, well, it's 9:31. We were 1 minute over, so we will say goodbye. Meet next week before the long holidays. If you have any questions, just send it our way.
Yeah.